This week, Attila Török from Zapier is with us to discuss security culture, challenges of remote work, and automation. Then Darwin Salazar from Accenture joins us to talk about Microsoft's Cloud SIEM, Sentinel. Finally, in the enterprise security news, Island raises $100 million to introduce a new Chromium-based web browser designed for the enterprise. Plextrack raises a $70 million Series B. HackerOne raises a $49 million Series E. Tenable acquires BAS vendor Symptom, and it's spelled with a CY, of course. Orca swallows up RapidSec. Sorry, had to, Orca swallows up. Get it? Cybereason confidentially files for IPO and doesn't want us looking at all the details. KKR looks to upload Optiv. Cybersecurity startup trends of 2022, 1,000 unicorns, InfoSec startup buzzword bingo. We've got fundings, IPOs, acquisitions, take privates, a $3 billion seed round, legislation that makes sense, all kinds of exciting stuff today on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Attackers are only getting more proficient, so how can you proactively adapt your cybersecurity strategy? Core Security by Help Systems helps you uncover and prioritize the risks that pose the biggest threat to your organization. Core Impact is a penetration testing tool that safely finds and exploits vulnerabilities using the same techniques as attackers. You can conduct advanced pen tests with ease using certified exploits and automations. Take your engagements to the next level by pairing with Cobalt Strike, a threat emulation tool ideal for adversary simulations and red team operations. Learn more at securityweekly.com/core security. CyberGRX brings a revolutionary approach to third-party cyber risk management. Using sophisticated data analytics, real-world attack scenarios, and real-time threat intelligence, CyberGRX provides a complete portfolio analysis of a company's third-party ecosystem, helping the world's leading businesses prioritize their risks and make smart decisions. Interested in learning more? Head over to securityweekly.com/CyberGRX and demo the world's biggest third-party exchange.
Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy Carrot Cake Day. This is episode 259, recorded on Thursday, February 3rd, 2022. I am your host, Adrian Sanabria. Joining me today is Katie Teitler. How are you, Katie? How you doing? Mute button? Trying to find a mute?
Yeah, I'm having problems with my mouse. I'm sorry. It's a bad problem. I should really stop with that. Hello, how are you? Happy February 3rd.
I'm pretty good, and I'm keeping with the trend. There were several options for today, but I try and keep it light and keeping it with the sweets. So Carrot Cake Day.
Carrot cake. It's I love carrot cake. I will eat carrot cake all day. Hummingbird cake is also good. It's sort of like carrot cake with pineapples, but it's not National Hummingbird Cake Day, so
I've heard that.
Yes, 2 thumbs up on carrot cake.
I have to agree. All my birthday cakes growing up were carrot cakes, so that cake has a special place in my heart. Also joining us today is Mr. Larry Pesci. How do you feel about carrot cake, Mr. Larry?
Carrot cake also has a very special place in my heart. Everybody in the family loves it, but it also has a very special place around my waistline, unfortunately. And Katie, thank you. Now I'm going to have to go check out hummingbird cake because that sounds amazing.
It really is.
Yeah, I think I know what I'm doing this weekend, making hummingbird.
It also, dare I entice you more, has a little alcohol in it, so it's like a carrot cake on steroids.
You had me sold at pineapple, but now, I gotta go.
You're busy for the next hour or two.
All right, one announcement here. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your device. You can also join our mailing list, our Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. And today, our first interview today, I'm really excited about. We're going to discuss what it's like to manage security in a 100% remote company that manages millions of customer API keys. We're excited to have Attila Török, head of security for Zapier. Attila started off developing custom Linux kernels for weird hardware, best opening line of a bio I think I've read in a long time, and built government-issued document management systems for many years, which brought me right back down. That doesn't sound as exciting as custom kernels for weird hardware. He was the first security hire at LogMeIn, where he wore many hats, focusing on infrastructure security, corporate IT security, and AppSec. At Zapier, he leads AppSec, cloud security, compliance, detection and response, and IT. I love how IT is just slapped on the end there. Oh, and IT. Like it's just a cherry on top of my responsibilities. Welcome, Attila.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is a really heartwarming welcome, Adrian. And yeah, indeed, IT is certainly the cherry on top. I always love to work with IT folks. And, there's always this disconnect between security and IT. Like security wants IT to do something and they want to do something else for their most important customers, the employees. And it's really good to have, that IT team under security. But anyway, so I'm sorry to disappointing you. Yeah, developing kernels was definitely fun, because that was before the Raspberry Pi era. So you actually had to solder things together and, put a custom kernel, put it on the hardware and hope it works. So it was a lot of fun. But I mean, working with citizen data, that's how I got into security, because I was wondering, okay, how are we going to secure and keep safe all these important information, like driver's license and criminal records. So that's how I actually got into security.
All right. And by any chance, did you do special effects in your past?
No, I did not. I know if you search for my name in IMDb, you will find a special effect specialist, but that's not me.
Okay. Just curious. All right. Yeah. So I guess starting out, it's interesting. I think you mentioned you were actually a Zapier customer before you started to work at Zapier. So what's the story there? How did you come to work at Zapier?
Yeah, that's really a fun story, Adrian. So, I mean, for everybody who is not that familiar with Zapier, like it's really an online automation tool that connects your favorite apps and automate repetitive tasks without coding. So it's a no-code solution. You don't have to rely on developers to build your integration. So because of that, we were using it back at my previous job at LogMeIn to do some simple stuff, to move data from one place to another, and etc. And I was always wondering, I'm connecting my Gmail account to this thing and then my Slack account to this. Like, how do they secure all those credentials? How do they do stuff, kind of masquerading me? So, funnily enough, they were looking for a head of security, so the recruiter reached out to me, and okay, I honestly started to talk to them because I wanted to figure out that piece, that how do you secure my stuff? And I started to talk to the engineering leadership, and their culture really got me. So I figured I'd give it a try, and I'm really happy here. I'm here for almost 2.5 years now.
Okay. Yeah. And in like normal company years, like non-startup years, that's maybe 5 years.
Could be. It certainly sometimes feels like that. I mean, when I joined, Zapier was just around 200 people. Now we're almost 600. So it's crazy.
So, you mentioned the culture got you. What was it about the company culture that drew you in?
The first of all is that they actually live it. You know what I mean? So every company has some sort of a culture. They might even have core values. But what I saw at Zapier, even during the interview process, that their values, our values, like default to action, default to transparency, obviously don't be a robot, build a robot, which really is about automation. And then my favorite, empathy, no ego. I kept seeing this everywhere during the interview process, and since then, all the time. Of course, default to transparency is really something that freaked me out when I joined, because it is really default to transparency. So, for example, in Slack, we don't really have private channels. Everything is public. You can go and check it out. Even our financial information internally are transparent. So there was a lot of freaking out of, okay, how are we going to secure this? But as we know, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So when we built up our security strategy, we really had to keep these values in mind. Like, how can we keep the essence of being transparent while securing our infrastructure and, most importantly, our customer data?
Right. Obviously, yeah, customer data, customer API keys, like just a thought of that, and I love that that's, how you came to join, was you were wondering, like, how are they protecting my data? Like, I don't know how many customers Zapier has, but just a thought of all those API keys, like the access that represents is just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it is for me as well to this day.
Yeah. So, how does that work with the company 100% remote? It sounds like Slack is kind of where people chat, where people get together. Are there a lot of video calls? Do people tend to, hey, let me give you a call on Slack and use the video calling functionality in Slack? Or is it mostly just writing to each other, just text?
Well, yes and no, and also I'm privileged enough to saw the transition. When I joined this, it was definitely more heavier on the async side, on asynchronously communicating over Slack. There weren't that many meetings, but I believe as a company grows, as a startup starting to grow up of its startup size, you cannot really have no structure. And structure means sometimes meetings. We try to do our best to keep it down to, okay, what is really essential. We still a lot of asynchronous communication to, Geekbot updates and whatnot. But there are certainly more, in person. I mean, Zoom meetings than at the beginning. But I guess that's the necessary evil. On the other hand, what's really interesting for me as working for a company that doesn't actually have offices. Like, we don't have a physical office. We have a PO box somewhere in San Francisco. So that means no office, no office network. So no really east to west traffic for an attacker if they would get into our network. No unpatched security cameras with default credentials that you have to worry about. Funny enough, we don't use email almost for nothing. The only way where we're using email is when somebody's responding to us externally.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting. The vendor I previously worked for was the same way. All internal communication was on Slack. We didn't talk to each other via email. That was just exchanges with customers, with the outside world.
So, I mean, kind of the side effect of that is when I joined, I ran a red team exercise, and when the red team presented it, okay, this is the phishing campaign that we're gonna run, we were like, well, that doesn't make sense. Nobody's reading email, so we can just skip that step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems like you can focus a whole lot more without all that back office stuff, without having to worry about Active Directory, all the legacy stuff that tends to come along with a physical network or a data center. It seems like you can focus a lot more on the stuff that matters.
I like to believe so. So for a fully remote company, because everybody is working in their own offices, the most important thing, the biggest risk factor, I would say, is access. Like, how can we provide access to our employees who are, sitting in a house outside of Phoenix, Arizona, like I am? Like, how can I build up a secure channel that they can actually get into work, so to speak? So access is the number one thing. Because of that, we really leaned on enabling and establishing SSO, like SSO everywhere as much as we can. And thankfully, that had a kind of a positive side effect that people had to remember fewer passwords. So it was much more convenient, which is very rare, more secure and more convenient at the same time.
So it sounds like you were the first security hire, correct? At Zapier?
So when I joined, there were already 3 security engineers, but they were embedded into the production engineering, the SRE team.
Right. Yeah. So you were the first to do any kind of corporate IT security, that kind of stuff, right? Like building security policies, building an incident response plan, all that kind of work. That
that is correct, Adrian. And those were actually my priorities. SSO, as I said, and incident response. The faster we can build up on incident response process is the better, because if you don't have yet coverage everywhere, then at least you need to be able to really quickly respond to God forbid an incident. So that was really the number one thing, to have a strong incident response plan, start building up that detection and response team. And also, logging and detection. Those were really the most important parts.
Yeah. I imagine with detection, do you do a lot of testing there? Do you run a lot of scenarios? Do you do a lot of red teaming exercises, to make sure that those detections work?
Yeah. So what we do is, first of all, we do have a bug bounty program, which is, I think that's the best, buck for the buck, because there are researchers out there who wants to get money, and compared to a pen test, when you would pay the pen tester company whether they find anything or find something or not, a bug bounty hunter actually will only get paid if they find something. So I think that's a really, really good bet. We do run our own internal security tools, whether that's static analysis for application security or vulnerability assessment for our infrastructure. And also we do have red team exercises. Like we do our own poking around, but we do have like a formal red team experiment or assessment when we bring in an external company for a lot of money, but they usually do an excellent job.
Yeah, and I've got to say, it's really easy to find your bug bounty. Like that's the first thing, I think. For most people, if they have something to report, it's got to be easy to report. You set all the expectations. I advise companies all the time on that want to create a vulnerability disclosure policy, or even a bug bounty. And this is a really good one.
And I wish I can take full credit for that, but the bug bounty was actually established before my time, which also shows how much our leadership actually thinks about security. Right. So that's really good. But I fully agree. Even if you have nobody in your security team, you can set up a bug bounty program, because that's kind of paying somebody else to do your job.
So how do you pull everybody in? How do you educate the organization on security initiatives? How do you get them to read security policies? How do you work with the folks internally on some of those security initiatives that you put together?
Yeah, I would say two examples. One is security champions. We established a security champion network, which basically, they are engineers who are enthusiastic about security. They don't have to be like a security expert, but just be enthusiastic. Enthusiasm can go a long way. And basically, we work with them. We provide them extra training. So, okay, if you're interested in security, here's some training material that you can actually use to learn more. And we have chapter meetings when we kind of trying to build up a community there, because these security champions can be our eyes and ears within those teams. Because at a fully remote company, water cooler discussions don't happen that often. Like, I cannot count how many times I've learned about something fishy by just passing somebody and hearing them talking about something on a hallway. And you're doing what? Let's take a closer look. These things don't happen at a fully remote company. So you need those security champions to become your eyes and ears and talk about things. So that's definitely helping. The other thing is, actually, you mentioned security policies. I have another kind of funny story about that, which is, so when I joined, one of the other important project was to, help the company to get ready for our first SOC 2 attestation, which happened last year. And our number one thing is to put all our policies in order. Every startup, there are some rules that eventually become procedures and policies, but you really need to put them into a more structured order to meet your compliance requirements. So, and funny enough, when we put that together, I have an excellent compliance manager, and I'm so happy to work with her. And we put together policies that literally, just a few pages long. I used to sew, 100 pages long policy documents that nobody ever read, including the auditors. But we wanted to make something that's actionable, something that helps people. That's what policy is supposed to do. Anyways, we put that out for a request for comments, just in case if anybody wants to take a look at it and give feedback, because growth through feedback is another value of ours. And so back then it was, as I said, around 200, less than 300 people. And then 150 or 160 people actually read and commented into those policies, which is kind of mind-blowing that all these people thought that this is important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it sounds like that company culture, being what it is, made your job a whole lot easier coming in. Already kind of being on board with the transparency and naturally from transparency, having a bug bounty program, I think that's a huge step culturally and thought wise. For the company to be able to accept a lot of the principles that we know that work really well in security.
One thing about it, I mean, you have to be really careful not to swim against the current, right? Because the company has these values, has this culture established. Like default to transparency. What's the response from security? Well, we're just going to remove everybody's access, and then nobody's looking at anything. Well, obviously that wouldn't work. So we had to find the balance of, okay, transparency, what does that mean? Well, you can still look at these reports, but nobody will have access to the API keys. That's going to be in the system, and nobody's going to get access to that because there's no reason, transparency or not. And then it's really easy to establish these things. It's a little bit more work, but I guess in our industry, in security, we sometimes don't put that extra work to really understand how the culture works. We just go and, okay, too much access means we need to reduce that.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing we were talking about earlier, it was, running through like tabletop exercises, running through some of those scenarios with employees. It sounds like that's maybe a bit of a challenge with everyone remote.
Oh yeah, certainly. That's not easy. What we can do is really three things. First of all, is when as we established our security detection and response, our security incident response process, well, we didn't just come up with our own version. We looked at what the rest of the company is doing for incident response. When there is an outage, what our SRE team is doing. What tools they use, because if we can kind of copy and paste, mimic what they do, well, there is one less thing to learn for people. So that really helped to get into a point when Actually, we had security events that were initiated by one of our employees that, hey, I saw something fishy, so I'm starting an incident. And this is really, really exciting, because that's what matters about any incidents. You need to jump into it as fast as possible. So that's one thing. The other thing is we do regular tabletop exercises within the closer team, within security and involving SREs. And then we do a larger scale incident response tests when we involve legal or the communication team to really try everything out.
Yeah, definitely. I think more people need to take that into account, because they're very involved when a lot of those scenarios happen for real. Very, very involved.
Indeed.
All right. Speaking of gamification and tabletops, I would be remiss if I did not ask you a few questions about games. So I've got two questions for you. What is your favorite pick for a board game that you can play in under an hour? And then the other question is, what's your favorite tabletop game period?
Oh, the first one is harder.
Of gameplay time.
Yeah, the first one is harder. So play within an hour. I would say Res Arcana, which is a really fast card-based board game. It's really a fun game. So that would be my pick. And my ultimate all-time favorite is Firefly, the board game. I'm a big fan of the Firefly sci-fi show, and that board game is just incredible. I mean, I kid you not, a session can take 7 to 8 hours, but it's 7 to 8 hours pure fun.
I heard they're bringing that back. Disney's bringing that back? Yeah, Firefly.
Seriously?
Yes.
2023, I think.
Oh, well, you just made my day. Thank you.
We don't know what it's going to look like, because the original Firefly had its off-color moments, and now it's a Disney property, so we don't know how family friendly they're going to make it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well,
Disney has plenty of off-color properties, right?
Yeah, they haven't messed up too badly in a while, and I think it's easy to say Joss Whedon is probably not going to be involved this time around. So it'll be interesting to see what they put together. But Darwin, thanks so much for joining us today on Enterprise Security Weekly.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be right back in a few moments with our next interview. We are talking to. Sorry, I got a little out of sorts with my notes here. We are talking to Darwin Salazar about Microsoft Sentinel.